Welcome to the Lend Academy podcast, episode number 147. This is your host, Peter Renton, founder of Lend Academy and co-founder of Lend It Fintech. Today on the show, I'm delighted to welcome Steve Polsky. He is the CEO and founder of Juvo. Now, Juvo are a fascinating company. They are trying to solve a very big problem because there are billions of people around the world who are creditworthy, who own a smartphone, but they're using a prepaid plan and they don't really have access to credit. So Juvo is solving that problem, starting with very small amounts, as we hear in the interview, and really talking about building them up, getting them on a pathway to really be included in the financial system. And they have been going for a few years now. They've got some traction. They're in 25 countries. We talk about how their system works, how they approach this really big problem, and how they need to partner with the mobile operators to really make this a reality. It was a fascinating interview. Hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to the podcast, Steve.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me today.
Okay, so I like to get these things started by giving the listeners, a little bit of background about yourself so they know kind of what you've done in your career up to this point.
Yeah, sure. Happy to give you a little bit of a background. We'll be talking a lot about Juvo today, I imagine, when we're about 4 years. Juvo's 4 years old, but this is my fifth startup venture. By background, I'm an engineer and also have a finance background. But, for me, I really enjoy taking concepts and trying to turn them into reality and building a team and bring products to market. And so that spanned everything from early voice messaging company called Voiceplex, a datacom company, educational software startup, most recently running Flickster and Rotten Tomatoes, if you happen to be a movies fan, and now on to Juvo and mobile financial services.
Well, it's quite a range of different verticals you've got there. So you've gone from the movie business to the mobile business and mobile finance, I guess. What are the experiences that you had that led to the founding of Juvo?
Sure. Yeah. Look, I like exploring new opportunities, learning different things, and often it's about the people and the team that involves building a company. So diverse background, but there is a theme that actually comes through in the start of Juvo. Really, actually, and so many things for me actually came together in launching Juvo. But at the early roots, the first startup company, a company called Voiceplex, we were, before you could leave a message for someone on their mobile phone, we were building the hardware and the software to enable mobile operators to do that. And as part of that, not only did I was in the communications vertical and working with mobile operators, but drove across the country of Venezuela in the back of a Ford Explorer, sold into Argentina and visited many cities there, took the company into China and many just all over the country. And out of that, I got a passion for international business. I just saw the reach and the impact and the power of just base communications, what was possible. And that kind of stuck with me throughout my career, and kind of tying together that experience with, in some ways, an odd sort of mix, what I had done at Flickster and Rotten Tomatoes, where we were reaching out to hundreds of millions of people around the world directly on their mobile phones, albeit they're about movies and your interest in entertainment, but it was all about how do we engage users directly, re-engage, and build just compelling consumer experiences. And all those two experiences in particular came together and instrumental in the launch of Juvo, that we can reach. It is fascinatingly, possible to reach just like a majority of the world directly today on their mobile phone. And really what that enables, in this case in the financial services space for Juvo, is kind of how a bunch of things come together. I mean, there are a lot of people involved and a lot of other things that happened, but that was the early foundation or the ingredients that went into starting Juvo.
Mm-hmm. So then let's just take a step back for a second, because not everyone will know what Juvo does. So why don't you explain what it is you do exactly and what problem you're trying to solve?
Sure. So I'll start it's a bit about how the idea came together and why we started the company. fascinatingly, when you look really around the world, about 77% of the world's population uses a prepaid mobile device. So it's about 5 billion SIM cards or 5 billion mobile plans. And interestingly, the majority of this population is unbanked or underbanked. They live in cash-based economies. And for most of these people, they don't have access to just basic financial services that we all take for granted in the U.S. And yet, there's over $1 trillion spent on communication services every year. I mean, just as human beings, we all need to communicate. Mm-hmm. And when you look at this population of prepaid users, what's also fascinating is that people top up their device in really, really tiny increments, like 40 cents or $1 at a time. They're buying this must-have utility in very, very tiny amounts, and yet at massive scale. And what dawned on us as a company was like, wait, for many of these people, these tiny transactions are their most frequent financial transactions. And what if we could be there when they're making those transactions? And if we viewed this $1 trillion as financial services transactions, then using what's technically possible today, we thought it could be an amazing leverage point, an incredible leverage point to try to walk people up a pathway to building a financial identity and gaining access to basic services, starting with their everyday interactions around their mobile phone. So that's like the backdrop. What do we do? What we try to do is, meet people around their usage of their phone. We make very tiny credit extensions to consumers, and I'll explain exactly for an individual person how this works. But we make small little extensions for them to help them use their mobile phone. And through all of the many, many interactions that we have with them, we enable them to walk up a pathway to financial services. I mean, if it makes sense, it's probably the best way to explain what we do is to start with an individual person. Mm-hmm.
That'd be great.
That would be helpful. Yeah. So look, again, this applies to a majority of the world's population. I mean, people top up all the time in tiny increments. So now let's think about it. So if we'll pick a woman who we often cite, I'm a woman named Jackie, and I'm in Jamaica, and I'm one of these prepaid users, one of these many users, and I'm at home, it's 10 o'clock at night, and I need to make a phone call, but I don't have balance on my phone. I can't go online. I don't have a credit card. I have to get off my couch, walk down the street, find a store that's open. It's 10 o'clock at night, remember. Put down some cash, and then my phone, then I can make a phone call. Effectively, my mobile device is really turned off for use of phone and for use of data. If you rewind the tape, what Juvo does is we would reach out to Jackie on her couch in the moment and say, hey, we'll turn on your phone for a day. A very, very simple, small transaction, but helping Jackie in terms of using her phone. And what we do is this extension for her is a start of a relationship for us. And we try through transparency and education, we'll say, look, we'll give you mobile service for the day. If you pay back on time, next time we'll loan you several days and you'll move from bronze to silver. If you continue to pay back on time, we'll loan you data, we'll loan you a week, 2 weeks, you'll move up to gold. And what we're trying to do here is actually create a repeat behavior around, in this case, good credit and financial responsibility, and have, like Jackie and a large part of the population, try to walk up a path or understand as I move from bronze to silver to gold to diamond, really what I'm doing is establishing a financial identity around good credit, right? And that's what we do. We walk people up to diamond, and that's just the beginning. Around the Caribbean, we're taking consumers from a tiny amount of money to a full month's worth of service, and later moving into handset financing, from there into virtual credit cards so consumers can begin to purchase online, and really moving consumers up from nothing all the way up to a whole set of basic financial services. Mm-hmm. Like that's what we do in a nutshell.
Okay. So then I imagine you can't just sort of turn up in Jamaica and start kind of accessing these customers. You need to I imagine deal with the operators, and I know you've done a deal with Cable and Wireless and others. Can you sort of explain how you're able to kind of to get your business into these different countries?
Yeah, our bet we bet that the way to reach 1 billion people in the world was through mobile operators, right? So you're right. Cable and Wireless is an example we often talk about. They're a fantastic partner of ours for many years. And we work with a number of operators in 25 countries. We approach them and we say, look, we Together, we will approach your consumer base. We will help them build identities. It benefits the mobile operator too, which I'll talk about in a second. And that enables us to reach a large portion of the population. Like where it gets exciting is, I talk about an example of Jackie, where it gets exciting is when we launch in a country, pretty quickly we're reaching a third, if not a half of all the mobile users touched by the mobile operator. It ends up being like double-digit percentages of the entire population.
Wow.
And why we're able to do this is because for the mobile operators, we're also helping them understand their consumers better, build a relationship based on identity, which translates into much more loyalty. Like their customers stay for twice as long. They, double the value of a consumer relationship. They're able to move upstream into higher value financial services. So they operate in a very competitive world right now, and we help them to change that, to really build deeper relationships with their consumers. And in turn, it builds identities and locks all the things that we're trying to do as a company.
Right, and I imagine they don't have the capacity or the capability to do what you do, because I mean they're not really in the credit businesses, or there are some of them. I mean some of them may have plans that they operate like you said, the other 20% of the population, but for the unbanked, I imagine that's very difficult for them. So that's why they choose to partner with you. Is that correct?
Yes. I mean, look, in all fairness, some of them offer point solutions that offer the very base amount. It's like a tiny, tiny bit if you need to make a phone call, right? But what we saw was that this is really just a tremendous opportunity to really go upstream, like to continue going upstream to a whole set of financial service. Like for many individuals, like creating a pathway around financial inclusion. And I think to your point, it's a multidimensional problem. You really have to be great at consumer engagement, understand data science, understand how to operate around the world and work with mobile operators, and also understand financial services. So we've really built a team with all of these competencies to attack this problem.
Mm-hmm. And so then do you consider yourself like a business to business type company or business to consumer, or is this really a hybrid of both? Because you need the mobile operators, but you're really going after the consumers. So how do you think about yourself?
Sure. So we're a B2B2C company. We partner deep, long-standing partnerships with our mobile operator, our business partners. But the reason they like to work with us is because we are great as a company around consumer engagement. Like at the end of the day, if it's not appealing to consumers, if they don't want to use it in large scale, it doesn't really matter, right? That's what we're really great at. And so it's really this B2B2C channel as a business.
Okay. And so you mentioned Jamaica. Tell us a little bit about the geographic footprint that you have today.
Look, over the course of 4 years, we've grown very quickly. We're in 25 different countries right now. From a focus, and again, it applies to nearly 80% of the world, but from a focus perspective in building the company, we started out first in Latin America and have grown really quickly there. We're also in Southeast Asia, and recently in Eastern Europe, some opportunities in the United States, and after our recent round of funding last year, expanding more broadly around the world.
Okay, so then it's interesting to me when you go to your website, and right there in big letters is identity changes everything. So you're not talking really about mobile phones, you're not talking about credit, you're talking about identity, and I thought that was really interesting. So tell me why is that the piece that you lead with?
So we think identity is the core to all of this. It's really the thing that unlocks the most value for consumers, in particular the segment of the population that we're addressing, that a lot of these people don't have access to services because they're unable to establish a financial identity. And if we can help them do that, that in and of itself is a big enabler. What we mean by that is, going back to Jamaica, I mean, you can be the most financially responsible person in Jamaica, and often you have no way to prove it, and there's no real reward for that. And we're trying to change that. We're trying to enable people to build it. I'm Steve Polsky. I have a business. I'm creditworthy, and I am trustworthy in terms of gaining access to services. And having that identity really enables me to connect with a whole series of upstream financial services providers. It's interesting in our world, in the mobile financial services space, I think for a long time, and this is in reading and researching and planning on starting Juvo, there was a lot of focus on mobile wallets. Like people often cite the huge success that M-Pesa has in Kenya and East Africa. It's actually amazing and really transformative. But really, it hasn't happened. People thought it would happen in more places faster. And that's a focus on a wallet ecosystem, which is complicated. You need enough people with wallets, enough merchants, and a way to store your money, enough places to spend your money. Like a lot of things have to come together for that ecosystem to take off. And we felt there was a better starting point, actually, that helping people build identities we can do anywhere in the world. In fact, we've launched the country pretty much every 6 weeks since we originally launched our product. And that by unlocking identities, it's like a precursor. It's an enabler to incentivize and enable people to get access to a whole set of upstream financial services. So we think it's a great starting point, and that is like the core to the company.
So then I'm curious, I want to dig in a little bit to the individual and how you're underwriting these or how you're making a decision. You talk about you start off really small, but does that mean like how are you actually implementing this? When someone's like this person sitting on their couch and they said, like you let them borrow, I don't know, $1 or whatever it is. How are you approving them? How are you verifying the identity? How does the nuts and bolts work?
Sure. So again, keep in mind, like the end goal here is taking a consumer up a whole pathway to a whole rich set of services. Like that's the goal. But what we realized is that the right starting point is to meet people by like something immediate and tangible and something that I can appreciate in the moment. And like that's how we start. We really start from just a kind of a simple need. Like I need to use my phone. I need to use data. I need to make a phone call. And so like reaching out to people at that time and just helping them in a little way turns out to be like a high value moment. And that helps us really grow quickly. But it's just a start. It's a very purposeful start as a way to build trust, have them understand the services, have them walk up a pathway, and unlock more and more financial services over time. So look, we purposely start. One of the problems we're solving is a problem of lack of information, and a lot of the places we're launching in areas where there is no FICO score, you can't reach out to the different credit bureaus. So actually, you don't know when you first see consumers that much about them. And we're solving that problem. We're helping people build this identity, building scoring, building identity, putting it into power in the user's hands around that. And we do it by this. It's a combination of data science. It's a combination of progressive approach, walking people up a pathway. It's about transparency incentives. Like we have found that the way that we graduate people actually changes consumers' behavior.
Right. Right. Yeah, that makes sense. But I still want to go back and just see if we can. I want to understand because I'm not clear. This person sitting on their couch, they need $1. Just assume it's $1. Do you? And say, do you work with the mobile operator and say, right, give them $1, and then do you lend them, where does the money go? Do you lend them the $1? Do you sort of combine with the mobile operator? How does the flow work?
Sure, a little of the mechanics. Yeah, so we will reach out typically in partnership or on behalf of the operator and recognize that this person is potentially someone who would want this service. And we do that. There's a variety of ways we do it. Either we literally know someone has run out, or we can predict it just through data science. And someone can opt in and say, yes, I'm interested in this. And then we will put the money on the phone. We will top up their phone. They can then use their phone just like they do any other day. And then eventually, the end of the next day, a week later, we'll walk down, top up their phone in the traditional manner, putting down cash at one of the point of sale places, and it will automatically settle with us. So we're not changing consumer behaviors. It's, in fact, one of the big use cases is one of convenience.
Right.
Kind of like we're talking here, I'm not going to say, well, I need to excuse myself from this podcast because I have to go top up my phone. I'll be right back. I can just, it's immediate. I can just say go, and that's when we look at use cases, it's often around convenience.
You said that it's the next time they go down to the physical store that you get you get your money back. Is that
correct?
So obviously, they're topping up their phone at the store, but then as you like, is there a mechanism? I mean, if they don't have a bank account, like it's hard for you to get paid any other way, right? You've got to go through the physical store. But I guess, are you trying to make it so that then they only have to go to instead of going to the store 3 times a week, they only have to go once a month? Is that the value proposition?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I think in both points you made, again, remember, the person does not have a digital means of payment, right? There's no account. So
right.
Yeah, eventually they physically pay in cash, but whenever they want. And we do see change in behavior. So instead of having to top up every several days, it can be a week, it can be 2 weeks. I mean, people can build up to a whole month's worth of service. So it really makes just usage of prepaid phone much more convenient. I mean, I like talk about this in a lot of different ways. But partners, one of them is exactly what you're saying. Like, why we're allowing prepaid consumers to become more postpaid. I think,
right.
Look, if you live in the United States and you use your phone and you're on Verizon or play a monthly plan, when you take out your phone, you really don't think about using it. It's just there, and you make a phone call and you don't think about it. That's not the experience for most of the people around the world. You actually would take out your phone, first see if you have any balance left. If not, try to find a place to top up, then make your call. It is much more inconvenient, and at a base level, we just make the service much more convenient.
Right. So then I'm interested about fraud or defaults. When someone they've topped up and then they throw away the SIM card and then they get a new SIM card and you never get your money. Like how are you mitigating against that?
Well, people thought we were crazy at the beginning, because there's another part of our model which plays into this, is where we do this around the Caribbean with 0 inches, 0 fees. So effectively what we're doing is standing out on the street corner, you can think about it this way, and handing out $10, $20, $40, $50 to people and saying, look, pay back whenever you want, pay back the exact same amount of money. And though we would never say this, if you don't pay back, there's no recourse. Look, I know this is the gearing up for the Lend It conference, but we really felt like there was a different approach for extending credit, or albeit, if you will, lending people money, right? And it was a bet early on. It was a bet that rather than traditionally thinking of charging like interest and fees and having interest and fees cover bad debt because not everyone will pay back, they're like, wait, what about if we think about this differently? Like, is there more value created by enabling a consumer to knock down a barrier for a consumer and enabling them to get access to more and more service? So like, would more value be created if we did this in a way which was just incredibly consumer friendly? And it was a bet, and what's exciting is it turns out we were right, that actually just enabling people to in this case use their phone service when they need to generates the most, like for the mobile operator teams, the most revenue. It enables people to move up, all of this. But to get to your point, it's fundamentally based on data science. Like, we both have to be able to model and understand, like, if you will, the trustworthiness or the creditworthiness of consumers. And we're also, by the way, not only modeling it, we're building it. Like, we're by the time that someone graduates up, in our case, up a pathway up to Diamond, they've unlocked a whole set of services, and maybe they've gotten access to a new smartphone, other services. Like, we've changed the way they think about their relationship, in this case with their SIM card. They're not going to throw it out. Like, we built loyalty, which translates directly into our payback stats.
Mm-hmm. But I imagine, you must have defaults. I imagine there are going to be people that hear about this and take advantage can you give us a sense of I don't know whether it's percentages or just give us a sense of how that process has gone and even if, does it vary? I imagine it does vary between countries, but just give us a sense of how much there is of this kind of, bad behavior.
So what's exciting is how low it is. I always joke that we need more bad debt. But what I mean by that is it was a belief early on that amongst these 5 billion prepaid consumers in the world, there's a large number of that are creditworthy. Again, they just have no way to prove it. You can't find them. financial services providers can't connect with them because there's no way to differentiate. And like we've shown through this graduation that there is a large portion of this population, a very large portion of this population, that they are creditworthy, right? If you can just find them and then walk them up this pathway. So the bad debt is very small, and it's enabling us to move up to provide more services, go higher and upstream into some of the things that we're doing.
So then can you give us a sense of the scale you're at today? I mean, you said 25 countries. I mean, how many individuals have taken out used your service?
So it's exciting. 25 countries, and in many of them we've reached, 30, 40, 50% penetration with our partners, double-digit percentages of the population. I'll give you some stats. We're about 10 transactions per second, over 400 million transactions, and growing quickly. So we're scaling very fast.
Okay. So then I'm curious, I saw that earlier this year you guys signed a deal with Samsung, and they're obviously one of the biggest, or if not the biggest, mobile phone provider on the planet. So tell me how you sort of were able to close that deal and what it means for Juvo.
We're very excited about the partnership with Samsung and what it represents. I think when we met, we talked to them, when we built the partnership, it was around the goal of enabling, think about it as the next billion people to move from feature phones into smartphones. And you can imagine for Samsung, really to reach another billion people, it's almost imperative that you go into this prepaid base where, again, you really don't have very little credit information. You're not sure who can afford. Many of these people can't afford a phone outright. So basically what our partnership is around, changing the experience of getting your first smartphone for this large portion of the population, where through all the interactions that we have with them and the large penetration in the countries where we are, we enable people to graduate up, and they get to pre-qualify for a Samsung handset, and we provide it to them on financing, so they can pay it over a series of payments. So yeah, we're enabling. The goal is to enable a whole hundreds of millions of people to move up into smartphones.
Wow, that is exciting. So as we've been talking, I've just been thinking that really what you've got is a data goldmine, because you're probably going to have data on people that nobody else has, or very, very few people have. Are you really, I mean, you've talked about other services that you're providing. I mean, how do you think about the data? Because you're really in some ways a credit bureau. If you look at the intelligence that you have, I mean, how do you feel about, what is your product? Is your product really the data in the end, or how do you view that?
So look, we're early in the life cycle of Juvo. We have a lot of plans, and I think it will vary some by geography, in different parts of the world. But at the heart of it, you're right. I mean, I think we're trying to solve two problems. One is distribution, and the other one is an information problem. So look, when we launch, as I mentioned a couple times, we reach a large segment of the population. When you're reaching 15, 20% of all the people in the country, it's a broad cross-section. So first of all, it's a channel to reach those people. And then second of all, it's around information. And by the way, the information is put in the hands of consumers, enabling them to build a financial identity and demonstrate that they're financially responsible. Once you've done those two things, I think there's limitless potential. You can think of us connecting these people with a whole set of upstream financial services providers who would like to reach a broader segment of the population, but it's not cost effective. It's impossible. It's hard to reach people. That's the distribution part. And it's really hard to know who will be good customers at the start. And if we can connect those two, I think we will solve a big problem. I mean, we're a double bottom line company. We want to build a big company, but really make an impact in the countries where we launch. So
yep,
that's the goal.
Yeah, makes sense. So we're almost out of time, but I do want to ask a couple more questions here. And one, you recently, I saw an announcement about you hired 2 senior female executives, and I wanted to ask about that and how you approach diversity at Juvo.
Sure. So we're very excited that both Lisa and Meg joined us recently. And Look, diversity is at the heart of Juvo. I mean, we operate all over the world. What's been exciting as a company is we found that like our mission and what we're working on really resonates with a very diverse group of people. People experience this in their life in one form or another, their family, themselves. So the team from Juvo comes from around 30 countries, speak 30-some languages. And so diversity is a really important thing for us. And that includes gender diversity. And we've had like an initiative at Juvo really to focus on that. And we've seen the results. It's exciting. I think having like, when we thought about this early on, how can we solve a problem all over the world from San Francisco? And I think a big part of that answer is building a very diverse team, right? Just having all different perspectives on problems, genders from different parts of the world, all of that. And so we made a lot of headway, still working on a number of things, made headway, and we're excited about it.
Okay, so then last question, what's on the horizon here for Juvo? And we've talked sort of some big picture things, but are you focused, what are you focused on most? Is it geographic expansion? Is it sort of new, getting deeper into the countries you're in, or what's your focus?
It's a bit of combination to two different dimensions. One is geographic expansion. As I mentioned, this applies all over the world. So we're expanding in Eastern Europe and looking at other geographies too. So growing very quickly. And then also growing upstream, partnering with more and more financial services providers to enable a whole set of upstream services. Mm-hmm. So I think as we grow, you'll see hopefully more information on both of those soon.
Well, it's a fascinating story, and I can see there's certainly a demand out there for services like yours. So I wish you guys all the best. Thanks for coming on the show, Steve.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you. Take care.
See ya. Bye.
Bye-bye.
I think it's exciting that companies like Juvo are really starting to get traction because, let's face it, there are billions of people, as we've said, that don't really have access to the same services that the developed world has access to. And the only reason they don't is really because we don't have any data. We can't really predict whether they're going to be responsible people or not. Well, with what the programs that companies like Juvo are doing are really bringing in the data that can help make those predictions far more accurate. As I said, it's really, they have a great treasure trove of data, and I really think that's their big asset here. And they can really be a springboard. If they do get traction across the world, and really they could easily provide a springboard for billions of people to bring them into the financial system, and that to me is a very worthwhile goal. Anyway, before I sign off, I just would like to request, if you're listening to this show, we've done almost 150 episodes now, and if you haven't yet left a review, I would very much appreciate it if you went to iTunes, went to Stitcher, leave a review, tell us what you think about the show. And I always appreciate it and read every single review that is received. Anyway, on that note, I will sign off. I very much appreciate you listening, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.